it's my pleasure to welcome Fabiha Monir, a visual journalist who is a photographer from Bangladesh, and she also uses text, film, and photography to communicate powerful stories. Fabiha specializes in human-centered narratives to cover migration, gender violence, social issues, and the issues of underprivileged populations. She also frequently contributes to New York Times, BBC, CNN, and The Guardian. Fabiha, thank you so much for joining us, and once again, welcome.
Thank you so much. That's a lovely introduction, and thanks for inspiring all of us.
Fabiha, your work has made significant contributions to gender reporting in Bangladesh, particularly focusing on the challenges faced by women in various sectors. And I've seen so much of your work in the textile industry, primarily. So I would like to ask you, what motivated you to focus on gender issues in your reporting?
You can see if you browse news from Bangladesh especially that there are not a lot of women photojournalists or documentary photographer working on the ground. Whereas if you see the protagonist, or for an example, I also work for a lot of nonprofit, international nonprofit organization. Their primary project participants are also women. And many of these stories are actually focused on women. But when I started working, I realized, because my journey started as a writer first. And then I realized that there is not a lot of women photographer or filmmaker in my country, especially the areas we are covering. And that's a different debate why there are not a lot of women photojournalists working on ground, especially on the global south. That's a different debate. But definitely that was some sort of one kind of my inspiration, because when I was working in the remote parts of Bangladesh, traveling all around Bangladesh, I was realizing that the kind of access I have into the lives of women, my male colleague, with due respect, they are very hardworking and they are also managing everything ethically, but they never had the access the way I can have the access into women's life, especially if you consider that in rural places still is very conservative and women don't want to be photographed in front of male, definitely. So yeah, that was my inspiration, because I realized that I can continue to work in my area, because I never left Bangladesh even for 3 months in a row. So I was always based in Bangladesh, and I will always be based in Bangladesh, hopefully, inshallah. So yeah, that's kind of my inspiration, that I have to be in the ground and work for both for myself and for the women in our area.
And how did you manage to gain the trust of the female textile workers you interviewed? I'm just continuously asking you the questions around textile, your reportage, because I'm personally very much inspired by that work. So that's why, I'm just pushed to ask so many questions around that work. Yeah.
Definitely, because the cost of your clothes it's my long-term project. If you can remember, during the time of Rana Plaza, even before the Tasreen incident, there are so many incidents happening in Bangladesh. And in fact, if you consider it one of the most tragic events in textile industry, many events were happening, and those were tragic events. So I was covering repeatedly those sort of newses, which were heartbreaking. But to be honest, if you see that for women in Bangladesh, especially underserved community where there is not a lot of opportunities for the women in the rural places, even if you now go to our villages, there are not much opportunities for women. Even if they go to higher level education, some women are not getting any job even after graduation. So textile was and still remain the primary source of kind of coming out from the zone, from the very difficult circumstances in the villages, or they try to skip early child marriages, and they were coming to the city for a hope to work in this big textile industries. And if you can see the economic history of Bangladesh, you can also definitely see that our country's economy's backbone is the textile industry. And who were working in this textile industry, 85% are still women. Textile worker. But when we are visiting their houses, they're living in a kind of one bedroom, in slum. They're living literally in slum, in the informal settlement. So their living condition, and there's there was not in-depth stories anywhere, published, because, every time everyone is listening about like, okay, cheap labor, they don't want to listen about these stories anymore, because when it is on the news over and over and over, audience don't want to listen to them anymore. So I realized that this is a great way for me, because I had greater access. For an example, like 10 years ago, women, especially women textile workers, were not ready to come in front of the camera, or I was not able to take any picture. I have only there, I was writing articles on them. But then when I built my trust, and they also realized that there is no harm showing their faces, there is no harm talking about it, because in any way they are going to be replaced. In any way they are going to lose their job after 5 years, 10 years, 12 years. So they started opening up to myself, and I was also very, very sensitive with them, because to be honest, as a journalist, you don't want someone to lose their job after reporting on something. You don't want them to stop because of your reportage. So there were some kind of point. I was also very hesitant, especially when I was reporting on, sexual harassment and some sensitive issues, because some women are, very traumatized, and they want to show their faces. They want to tell everything about the person. But I was very mindful at that point, because when the image or photograph is out in the internet, it's for forever. I will not have any control over it, right? So, yes, I believe that it's our collaborative approach. I believe that they trusted me. I trust them, because at the end of the day, this is my country. No matter what, I'm not going to leave my country, and I will go back to them ever and ever again. So they also had this trust on me that she's not going anywhere. She's not someone that coming here and taking our story and going somewhere else. So this is how actually this mutual bond and respect I started growing, and still I'm working hard.
And Fabiha, do you use any specific or particular strategies to ensure that subjects like these that you just talked about, or other subjects in general that you have reported, that your subjects feel safe and respected? I mean, are there any specific strategies that you use to take photography or do multimedia projects?
Definitely, because when we started our career as you can say like as a documentary photographer, or as a writer or a journalist or filmmaker, you are in a mindset that, okay, I have to achieve something in life. I have to do this in a right way. But sometimes it's always a learning process. Like for past 10 years, from every assignment, I'm learning something. I mean, I can honestly say that every time I'm returning from an assignment, I am just literally writing what I have learned from this assignment. So some people can say that experienced people know everything. No, that doesn't actually is true. We are learning and sometimes relearning, unlearning. So for me, what has helped me, because to be honest, in the beginning of my career, I was also not very kind of cautious about what I'm taking, like when I'm reporting for in the Rohingya camp, or when I am reporting for on sexual violence. I was not very mindful. My mindset was like, okay, it has to be something striking images, and the reporters has to be like, everyone has to read it. But then slowly, when I started getting education from various institutes, because I went to various universities for further studies, and I was also taking part of many workshops, and my mentors started telling me about ethical storytelling. I started learning about ethical storytelling. Then everything has changed. I still can remember my personal, there is someone I really admire. She is Nita Satin. I say she was telling me that, Fabiha, remember one thing, like when you were in the field and photographing an elderly woman, remember about your mother. Do you want to take a picture in this way, the way you want to take the picture of this person, or your child, or your husband, or someone you dearly love? And this is very simple. This is not complex. As a human being, when we actually respect another human being from this level, and there is no power play, because definitely we're in a power position when we are into someone's life who is not equally financially, they are not from the same class or same same area, that is a very sensitive point. So I am very respectful. And number two is we should be very mindful. Like for an example, I have been always taking picture of like kind of our country leaders and great politicians. Also, I'm taking pictures and also taking information of a Rohingya refugee child. But in any of the places, I'm not taking selfie. I'm not sharing my on-time location. I'm not sharing because data protection is very important and vital for us. Because sometimes out of enthusiasm, because it's a very competitive field, we want to show everyone everything. Like, listen, I can do everything. So we want to hook our audience in various ways, but we need to be mindful because it's very important that when you are working in the field, we should do not do anything that can harm in any way to the person, especially sharing their detail online unknowingly is a very important factor, and also understanding the privacy. And another last one, I know I'm talking a lot. Last one is like when I started my career, taking a no was a very ego factor for me. Like someone is not saying that no, she doesn't want to take picture or she doesn't want to participate in this interview. But now, no, it's like I like it. I always asking for their consent, because that for editorial work we do not need to have proper written consent so far. But again, it's our duty to talk to the person and understand if they are willing to share their life story with us. So that is also a learning point for me, and I believe that will also be we should consider when we are in the field and understand that it is urgent that we, of course, report on something, but this is also important that they are a human being and our reportage, our photograph is going to impact them for a lifetime.
Yeah, you talked about like balancing your reporting, like you are interviewing people who are like on the fringes, who are like undeserved or impoverished communities, and you're also, reporting on the politicians. So I'm just curious to know, like, has the political climate in Bangladesh anyway affected your ability to report on certain issues that you wanted to report but you couldn't, like, or you sort of delayed?
Yes, there is a massive democratic shift in Bangladesh right now. Everyone is aware of this. So to be very honest, because it is very easy, to identify a women photographer, a women journalist working for international news media in Bangladesh. So throughout my career, I was very mindful that people do not target me. People means the censorship always there within the country. So I had to be very mindful. Sometimes it feels insane, but when we are working outside, I'm kind of like this, the kind of safety protocol I have to maintain. That's not same for many of my male colleagues. Definitely, like I don't go outside after 8 p.m. anywhere in the countryside. I'm wearing certain kind of clothing so that I don't, I don't grab attention from other people. And also as a photographer and filmmaker, I'm carrying a lot of equipment with me, which is also a part of kind of safety and security has been a ever challenge for any woman photographer or journalist working in global south. And there is no debate on this, because sometimes newsrooms are kind of shrinking and they don't have much budget for traveling and etc. So I feel like sometimes we have to spend from out of pocket, because we have to ensure our safety and security first. Because when you are for a certain outlet working in a certain zone and you face some kind of harassment and it's everywhere in the public, then unfortunately the blame is on the photographer, the blame is on the women journalists. So it's a very tricky discussion.
And can you share a particular challenging story you have covered and how it impacted you personally?
Oh my God, there are so many. I can't even come up one, because even the recent event, because in the August it was I was working, I was covering the political turmoil in our country and the political shift, and then the opposition party Army League was extremely that we had no freedom in press, right? So, and then also, as well as our general people and audience were very, very angry with the media, also with international media. So when I was covering in the field and I was covering the protests, I was not publicly sharing everything in the protest, especially, people are following you on Facebook, people are following you in Instagram, and they become angry that why, you are sitting in the home and doing only the good stuff. You are not talking about it. But actually we were working, but I cannot share it. I cannot share all my project online until it is not in the in the news or media. We have to have this privacy. And when I was in the field, kind of like police were attacking us, as well as general people were attacking us, and all groups of politicians were attacking us. So I felt like you are in a position that everyone can blame you, and it makes it very, very difficult as a journalist, as a photojournalist. Your job becomes very difficult because number one, you have to also protect the data and privacy of the people you are interviewing and meeting and doing, and you have to also protect the privacy of the project you are working. But again, there are certain expectations from you when you are in some position that you have to be vocal, you have to share your certain opinion about something. But as a journalist, our personal opinion sometimes is not kind of like helpful. The work we have to do is our duty, so we have to do it in a right way. And sometimes we cannot please even the general people. We cannot please the ruling party. We cannot please the opposition party. So that is a very difficult situation for us, and especially as a women photographer or women journalist or filmmaker. Everyone knows you because there is the number is so few that they knows that you are there. So yeah, it's tough.
Fabiha, how do you envision the role of visual storytelling in advocating for women's rights?
I trust that we have to continue to work because sometimes it's very exhausting. I have been working in the field. If I consider my internship period, like 10 to 12 years, I have been working, and sometimes I feel very exhausted, to be honest, because this doesn't only impact you mentally; it's impact you physically, emotionally, and also financially, because the financial landscape of the journalism industry. And also there is not, because when someone is hiring you as a women photographer, especially women photographer, not as a writer or journalist, like they sometimes people will look at you like you are the women pilot. Like, can they trust you? So, I mean, when we are in the field, it's like all the men are trying to give you some advices. Those don't have any idea about photography. Like, they want to give you advices which they will never give to a male photographer or filmmaker. So that's definitely a challenging part. But every time I feel very tired. Every time I feel like to sleep, and like sometimes even I feel like to leave the country, to be honest. Sometimes I feel very frustrated because of the safety and security issue, because of the labeling, because of there is uncertainty in the work, because it's still now you have to hire someone eligible who has all the qualities. The hiring policy is not transparent so far now, so this is very frustrating because photography, filmmaking, and of course, as a professionally writing is a very expensive job, because we don't know when our next job will come as an independent photographer or writer or filmmaker. So that is itself is very difficult, and also the kind of investment we have to do, equipment wise, safety wise, it's massive. So I believe that still we have some great editors who believe on us, and they understand the local voices. And since the COVID, things has changed. Our editors started believing on us. In the past, it was not the same, definitely. But so I feel like now, if we quit, then what will happen to the other people who are actually coming to our position? So I think that especially women photographer, women journalists, and filmmakers should continue to work, especially in global South. And no matter how hard it seems, we should unite together and speak about our rights and do our part. Because I also felt that our vibe will attract our tribe, yeah, and we will get there.
Sure. Fabiha, what advice would you give to young female journalists aspiring to cover gender issues?
You have to be, I believe that now information is everywhere, so people have a tendency that you do not have to go to the universities, you do not have to study, because YouTube is your best tutor, and so you can buy a bunch of book and go into the field, buy a camera, and you become a photographer. Please don't trust that, because you're gonna disappoint if you trust that YouTube, some YouTube videos and fancy camera can make you a great photographer. Sorry, you are going to be disappointed very soon. So trust the process and always see your senior photographers who were working very hard. Track their journey, how they are doing it, and reach out to them, talk to them, or don't try to get the shortcuts. I have seen, and you also know that everyone we know in us is a respectful position. I'm not going to say successful position, respectful position. They worked very, very hard, because if you and me are going to produce the same kind of photograph, then what's the purpose of working, right? So bring something that has your light and that has your vision. Don't become a photography machine, because sometimes it feels like very easy, but it's not very easy. So determination, hard work, and definitely please respect the people we are working with, because sometimes in the long run we forget. People take other people's time and availability as a kind of guaranteed. That is not true, because I always meet people like someone I photographed 5 years ago. I'm going to meet her again after 5 years. For many organization, I have worked like 10 years ago, and they are sending me to do revisited of the program, and I'm meeting them. So you remember that you have to face them. You cannot. So you have to be very respectful. Yeah, you can't escape anymore now.
Fabiha, thank you so much for your time. We at WFC really express our appreciation for the important and incredible work you're doing, and we really look up to your work and look forward to connecting with you in the future as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. You guys are doing amazing job, because sometimes it's very important that everyone have access to this sort of content. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care.